I used to think I just liked corporate revenge videos because they were dramatic, until one night at 11:47 p.m., sitting alone in my kitchen, I felt my body physically relax when a woman on my screen quietly said, "Then I stopped fixing their mistakes." And the scary part wasn't that she shut the system down, it was that I didn't feel happy. I felt relieved, like someone had just done something I'd been too afraid to do for years. That's when I started wondering what exactly I was still tolerating. The first time I noticed it, the house was completely quiet except for the hum of my refrigerator and the soft clicking of my laptop keys. I had a half-empty mug of cold coffee sitting beside me, and I was watching a video about an underpaid analyst who found out her boss had been taking credit for her reports for 3 years. The story wasn't loud, no screaming, no dramatic music, just her calm voice explaining how she stopped sending reminders, stopped correcting his numbers, stopped covering small mistakes no one else saw. And when the quarterly presentation collapsed in front of the board because no one knew how the system actually worked, I felt my shoulders drop, like I'd been carrying something heavy all day. That was the first twist. I wasn't excited, I was calm. That confused me. I wasn't the one being exploited, I wasn't even in that company, but my chest felt lighter, like someone had just cracked a window in a stuffy room. I closed the laptop, but I couldn't shake the feeling. The next morning at work, my phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m. It was my manager asking if I could quickly adjust a report that technically wasn't mine. I stared at the screen longer than usual. That's when the second twist hit me. I didn't feel annoyed. I felt tired. A specific kind of tired. The kind that doesn't come from long hours, but from being the reliable one. The one who fixes things before anyone notices they're broken. I adjusted the report anyway. Of course I did. But I couldn't stop thinking about the woman in the video. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't quit dramatically. She had just stopped cushioning everyone else's mistakes. That quiet decision shook an entire executive floor. Later that week, I watched another story. Different company, different woman, same pattern. Years of being the dependable one, years of skipped promotions, and then, one day, she simply stopped staying late. Deadlines slipped, emails piled up, suddenly leadership wanted meetings. I noticed something strange in the comments under that video. They weren't celebrating chaos, they were writing things like, "I wish I had the courage," or "I've been holding my team together for years." That's when the third twist landed. These stories weren't about revenge, they were about relief, about someone finally stepping back from a system that quietly depended on their silence. And I started wondering why that relief felt so personal. Because if it was just entertainment, why did my stomach tighten every time my boss said, "We're like family here"? Why did my jaw clench when I heard, "I know it's not your job, but you're so good at this"? I didn't have answers yet. I just had that strange, steady feeling that maybe the reason these stories hit so hard is because somewhere, in ways we barely admit, we're all the one keeping the lights on. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. I didn't plan to test the theory. I told myself I was just observing, just noticing patterns, just being curious. But the following Tuesday at 6:38 p.m., when most of the office had already left and the overhead lights had switched to that dim after-hours glow, I found myself staring at a spreadsheet that wasn't mine. Again. It had 3 errors that would absolutely blow up in tomorrow's meeting. I knew exactly how to fix them. It would take maybe 12 minutes, 15 if I double-checked formulas. My fingers were already resting on the keyboard. That's when something uncomfortable happened. I heard that calm voice from those videos in my head. I stopped fixing what wasn't my responsibility. My stomach tightened. Not with rebellion, with fear. That was the first shock. I wasn't scared of making a mistake. I was scared of being seen as less helpful, less dependable, replaceable. I sat back in my chair and looked around the office. Empty desks, silent printers, the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering from the break room. No one was watching, which made it worse, because if I fixed it, no one would know, and if I didn't fix it, no one would know that either, until tomorrow. That was the second shock. Invisible labor only exists because it's invisible. If I stopped, there wouldn't be applause, there would just be exposure. I closed the spreadsheet. My heart was beating louder than it should have been for something so small. I packed my bag slowly, half expecting my manager to pop up from behind a cubicle and ask what I was doing. No one did. I drove home with this low buzz under my skin, like I'd done something reckless. The next morning, the meeting started at 9 a.m. sharp. I kept my face neutral. The presentation moved smoothly for the first 10 minutes. Then it happened. A number didn't match. A chart wouldn't load properly. My manager paused, laughed lightly, said, "Huh, that's strange." I felt heat rise up my neck. This was the moment, right? The dramatic unraveling. Except it wasn't dramatic. He stumbled through it, said he'd follow up. The meeting moved on. No collapse, no executive meltdown. That was the third shock. The system didn't explode, it just adjusted. But here's what changed. At 10:17 a.m., he walked over to my desk and asked, "Did you see those discrepancies?" I said yes. He asked why I hadn't flagged them. My pulse thudded in my ears, but my voice stayed steady. It wasn't my report. There was a pause. Not angry, not explosive, just unfamiliar. He nodded slowly and said, "Right, okay." Then he walked away. That tiny exchange felt bigger than the meeting, because nothing burned down. I wasn't fired, no one yelled, but something subtle shifted. For the rest of the week, I noticed he checked his own numbers more carefully. He looped in the actual report owner. He stopped automatically forwarding last-minute fixes to me. That's when the real shock settled in. The power in those revenge stories wasn't destruction, it was withdrawal. And withdrawal didn't require drama, it required tolerance for discomfort. The discomfort of not being the hero. The discomfort of letting someone else feel the weight they'd quietly handed you for years. And once I felt that shift in real life, not on a screen, I couldn't unfeel it. Because now the question wasn't why these stories perform so well. The question was what happens when you realize you've been volunteering your silence all along. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe. I thought that would be the end of it. One small boundary, one slightly awkward conversation, a quiet shift back to normal. But that's not how it works. The real consequence didn't show up in a meeting. It showed up 3 days later at 8:52 p.m. on a Friday when my manager buzzed again while I was standing in the grocery store checkout line. It was my manager again. "Hey, quick thing. Can you log in and fix the dashboard before Monday?" My chest tightened, not because of the request, but because I knew this was the test. Not dramatic, not explosive, just familiar. The old version of me would have said yes before he even finished typing. I would have balanced my laptop on the kitchen counter, half-eaten dinner going cold, telling myself it's easier this way. But now there was a pause between the buzz and my response. That pause felt heavy. That was the first consequence. When you stop automatically saying yes, you have to sit inside the discomfort of maybe disappointing someone. I stared at the fluorescent lights reflecting off the grocery store floor. My heart was beating too fast for something so small. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, I wrote,
I can take a look first thing Monday morning. Simple, neutral, not emotional. I hit send before I could rethink it. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then stopped, then appeared again. I could feel heat climbing up my neck. He replied, "It's kind of urgent." That familiar pull kicked in, the guilt, the urge to fix. The second consequence is internal. No one talks about that part. The battle isn't with your boss, it's with the version of you that equates usefulness with safety. I took a slow breath and typed, "If it's urgent, maybe the team on call can handle it tonight." I locked my phone before I could watch the response. I walked out of the store feeling like I'd just done something risky, even though I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't broken a rule, hadn't done anything wrong. That's when I realized something deeper. The fear was never about the workload. It was about losing my position as the dependable one. Because if I'm not the fixer, who am I in the room? Monday came. I logged in expecting tension, maybe a cold tone, maybe subtle punishment. Instead, I saw a message from the on-call team confirming they had handled it. The system hadn't collapsed, the company hadn't burned down, no one had accused me of being difficult. And that was the third consequence. The illusion cracked, not loudly, quietly. The truth is, I wasn't indispensable, and that should have felt threatening. But it didn't. It felt freeing. Because if the company could survive without my silent sacrifice, then maybe my value wasn't tied to silent sacrifice. That's why those revenge corporate stories hit so hard. Not because we want destruction, not because we hate authority, but because we're tired of carrying weight that was never officially ours. Watching someone step back gives us permission to test it in our own lives. And when you test it, even in a small way, you discover something unsettling. Most systems don't fall apart when you stop overfunctioning. They just redistribute the load. The real fantasy isn't revenge, it's relief. And once you feel that relief in real life, even once, the next request sounds different. The next quick favor feels optional. The next late night buzz doesn't control your breathing. That's the part no viral video can fully show you. The consequence isn't chaos, it's clarity. And clarity changes how you walk into every room after that. If you want to see what happened next, stay with me. And if you like stories that reveal what people try to hide, don't forget to like and subscribe.